Did you know that despite making up 50% of sellers, women hold just 30% of the sales leadership roles? It's not a pipeline problem. That's a promotion problem. Welcome to the Women in Sales Leadership podcast, where we make the new rules of success for high-performing women in sales. And I'm your host, Amy Evans, sales leader turned executive coach. After 25 years in the trenches at Salesforce, EDP, and startups, I now help ambitious sales managers step into second-line leadership roles. If you are ready to lead with authority, earn what you're worth, and make a bigger impact, you are in the right place. Click follow so the next episode will be waiting for you. Wow. Welcome back to Women in Sales Leadership. I am so excited to kick off season 3, and I have so much gratitude. Last season, when I had been in, the second season, obviously, of this show, the show actually won an award, which was really surprising for me and super exciting, and felt wonderful. I won't lie. I want to thank each of you who has been listening since the beginning of this journey, since the beginning of this podcast. And I want to specifically thank you also if you're new today and you've never visited or listened to this conversation or in this podcast before. I'm so happy that you're here and thankful that you've invested your time. So what I want to do for today, I've got an outline, but I want to keep it really conversational deliberately, because this is me talking with you. And that's the reason that I began this show. And I began this show without a real understanding of what I was going to do with it or where I was going to go with it. I started it with this vision of creating a space where women in sales leadership could be seen and heard, where women in sales leadership could learn from one another and be educated about things that are often living silently in our brains, that we all need help and support with as leaders. So this journey began as a podcast, and what came alongside of the podcast was a business that I have launched, and I'm launching along with season 3. I'm officially launching a business that I've had in place for several months now, and the business is very cleverly called Amy Evans Leadership Coaching. And I'll share what that is and what I do in a moment. Today is about kicking off, beginning again. We're in the fall season where we get to kind of buckle back down. School's in session. The end of the year is in sight, and it's a chance to just really start afresh and anew in another season of our careers, of our lives, of the year. And that's what I want to speak about today. I want to talk about the journey. I want to talk about some lessons that I've learned and really set the stage for what this season is going to be in Women in Sales Leadership. What I've done differently this time is I have so many episodes that are so freaking awesome that I've already recorded. And so that's done, and I can't tell you how great that feels to know that that's completed. So while the summer was going on and there was a pause in the season for the podcast, I was actually doing work. So we get to enjoy the fruit of that labor that I had this summer in the next coming weeks. So I'm going to share with you briefly about my business, but I want to get straight into the story. So what's the business about, for those who might be wondering and those who might not know? So Amy Evans Leadership Coaching is exactly that. It's a coaching business that was really born out of this idea of, I see so many sales leaders, really great sales leaders that are out there who they work in their career, they work their way up. They're first an individual contributor. They're really successful. They're a super high performer. They're usually top of the leaderboard. And then they decide they want more and they want leadership. And so they go for that leadership role, their first line leadership role. And first line leadership, for those who may not know the terminology, is when you're a leader who's leading individual contributors, right? And in this situation, it's, you're leading sellers. So you get to that point, and then, your dream was never to say, like, oh, I want to be a sales manager for the rest of my life. Nothing wrong with that, by the way, if that's what you want to do, because I know people that do that for a living and they're freaking amazing and they have a great work-life balance and they do really well for themselves. Oftentimes there's a bigger vision there. And that bigger vision is like, hey, I really want to be in a C-suite position, or I really want to be a VP, CRO. Like, I have big sights, maybe even a CEO someday. Because let's face it, if you can execute in sales, you touch every single piece of the business, right? You're touching product, you're touching product development, you're touching customer success, customer service, legal. Oftentimes, shoot, I remember I was talking to InfoSec security people because, my clients always wanted these like 200-page information security questionnaire documents answered, right? The cajoling and the cat herding and the symphony conducting that happens when you're a sales leader, you touch every part of the business. Meanwhile, you are delivering the lifeblood of the business, which is revenue growth. So when you have that all going on, it's only natural. You're a high performer, you're a striver, you conquer things, and many of us want more. And that next big jump up in leadership is to go from being a leader, individual contributors, to being a leader of leaders. A leader of leaders. And when you make that change, when you make that evolution as a sales leader to become a leader of leaders, you now have accessed executive opportunities. Depending on the size of the company you're in, you could be a mid-level or mid-level leader, like an area vice president. Some companies call that. That's what Salesforce called it. I've heard it called group vice president. I've even heard it called regional vice president. Like, pick your adjective for vice president that you want. Everybody has a different name for it, but ultimately the job's the same. And the smaller the company is, when you're a leader of leaders, the higher up in the food chain you are, where you could actually be the VP of sales. You could actually be full-on responsible for a business unit, or full-on responsible for a small to mid-sized company, and be their VP of sales or their CRO, which is exactly the path that I had one of the people that worked for me, go. He was an excellent regional vice president, which was a first line leadership role, and the software company he was working, and then he got promoted, or not promoted, he got hired as a CRO into a mid-size systems integrator. So the paths of, like, once you make that leap into leader of leaders, it, depending on the size of company you're at, you're now operating another echelon. And what it means from a leadership perspective is that you are still always going to be execution. You're still always going to be having to deliver the numbers. Like, those are table stakes to play in this game, right? But what changes is now, instead of getting strategy dictated down upon you, and if you're lucky, you might have slight voice, but often not, you now, in that second line role, get to have a voice in strategy. You have more autonomy. You have more control. And you can truly impact broader scale strategic change. You also can impact broader scale cultural change. I get so excited when I talk about this. You can hear it in my voice, right? I could talk for a long time. This is where it's at when you make this kind of jump up. And what I noticed is there are leaders out there, they get to that first line role, and then they struggle to move up. And the struggle could be all kinds of reasons why. But ultimately, what I have found out, and what I've coached people through and learned myself through my own career is that a big part of the struggle comes in, it's a mindset shift, first and foremost, like a mindset shift of, I'm not just a sales manager, I am a strategic executive. And to start thinking and operating that way. And then the second one is having a really good grasp on how to connect the dots on your career story in a way that resonates with senior leaders and helps them see you as that true leader of leaders person, right? You're not just a sales manager. You have so much more capability, so much more potential, so much more skill, so much more strategy, and you become a natural fit for that. So my coaching business is all about teaching sales leaders, specifically in tech, in B2B tech, teaching them how to make that jump up. And the jump up can be pretty significant in terms of money that you can earn. It's totally normal and common, especially inside the Fortune 500, Fortune 200 B2B tech places, for a person at the second line leadership level to be earning over $500,000 a year, and with restricted stock or stock grants that they get, that amount can go up to close to $1 million, over $1 million, which is how much money I was making at Salesforce. So a lot of leaders have the leadership chops to get there. They're high performing, they're delivering their numbers. The competition gets really, really stiff when you're competing for jobs that pay that great. And there's just not as many of them. And so having a coach and a guide to get you ready to go through that promotion, interview, telling your story, all the networking, all the work that goes into that, that's what I do. And the reason I do that is because I'm so passionate about really great leaders getting their shot to lead. The leaders who care, the leaders who lead with love, the leaders who are high trust, right? These are the leaders who oftentimes aren't the best at telling their story. They aren't the best at advocating for themselves. They aren't the best at bragging because they've been taught not to brag. Ladies, we know this. This isn't just for women. I find women gravitate toward me because, well, turns out I'm a woman. But it's for any leader that wants that and needs help putting it together, because nobody teaches you how to make this move, and a very few people figure it out. I did it. I've helped other people do it. So that's my company, Amy Evans Leadership Coaching. All right, I talked for a good minute about that. Let's go into this episode and what the meat of it really is. And that is, I want to bring things back to some of the lessons that I've learned and to really ground ourselves in the leadership journey. So I've been doing sales leadership work for 25 years. I never wanted to be a salesperson, ever, ever, ever. I couldn't even sell a Girl Scout cookie, folks. Like, I was so nervous to go knock on the door and schlep around with my boxes of cookies. However, I happen to have a skill that lends itself to sales. I learned how to communicate really well. In high school, I was on the debate team, and so I learned how to extemporaneously speak. I learned how to critically think. I learned how to be able to argue both sides of any argument and show up with data and make effective, persuasive communication happen. That is my training in high school. And when I have that as a training, and you combine that with an 8-year-old dream to be a rock star, then it kind of seems like somehow selling marries those two ideas together, and that's what I ended up doing. So I started where everybody else started. I was a BDR. I was cold calling all day long. We didn't have any of this stuff that people have today, right? There was no Zoom info. LinkedIn was like I don't think LinkedIn even existed really. Um, it was here's a list of companies and their telephone numbers, and you just smiled and dialed, baby. And that's what I did. And so I did that. I chased a lot. I was super, as any young person is, right? So driven and wanting to achieve. So I talked my way into, I kind of became the team lead of the BDRs. And then I created a job for myself where I was like an inside salesperson, which didn't really exist back then. Then I even created a whole nother job where I talked to the ELT of that startup company, and I convinced them to allow me to go back into our customer base and do upsells of a product that we'd added to the core product, but none of our field sales reps were really selling any of it. Yet we had like this customer base that was ripe for a customer. So I created things for myself. I was in that youthful, like, the world is my oyster moment, right? Sometimes I wish I could grab the juice that I was drinking back then some days and like reinvigorate myself with it, because as you mature, some of that like super high energy and like go for it stuff, you get a little wiser, you get smarter, and you try to figure out how to temper your energy. So that all of that time of my life was all about this like big, huge upward trajectory. I earned my MBA at night. I was full on lunatic. I earned my MBA at night while I was working during the day. I was paying off my college loans. I put myself through undergrad. I put myself through graduate school, and all of those things happened, and everything kind of seemed like it was just up, 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 and then all of a sudden there was a setback. The startup that I had just started my career with got bought by a big brand name company that was just like slow and corporate, and not the idea of a place that I wanted to work, but it ended up being an excellent place to work. And it's a payroll company called ADP. And for those who don't know ADP, like, if you want to learn how to sell the proper way, if you want to learn true sales chops, it is boring ass payroll, but you will learn how to sell. And that training will take you places. And I stuck around inside of ADP, continued to grow my career. I took a left turn into partnerships for a year, realized that I wasn't a partner person. I still was a salesperson. So I needed to just own who I was. And I kept over and over again taking on these informal leadership roles. Like, I was never named a leader, but I started to be the one that everybody came to when they had problems they needed to solve. Team dynamics and how do I work with, even sometimes deal strategy. The team would come to me, and we were tight. We had such a great crew there. It was actually it was a wonderful crew. Just so happens that a lot of them were really, really high-powered women, some of which have gone on to now be CEOs and, big roles inside of other companies back at our early days at ADP. So, I spent some time at ADP, and I raised my hand there, and I had a great leader. I raised my hand. I said, you know what? I know I want to be a leader. I know this about myself, because for a while I kind of denied it. Like, I didn't want to do the work. I didn't want responsibility. It felt like a headache. And, when I was really honest with myself, I had to acknowledge that I just wasn't satisfied, not owning who I was and who I am as a leader. I like to be in charge. I will acknowledge it fully. I do. Nothing makes me happier than when I have another leader who's so capable and amazing that I don't have to be in charge. I can trust them to do stuff. And anyway, acknowledging that about myself was a real eye-opener for me. And so when I raised my hand for leadership and I told my boss, what I realized mistake I made back then was that I wasn't emphatic enough about it. I wasn't clear enough. Because it was like kind of a like, yeah, sure reaction. And then I raised my hand again. And unfortunately, or maybe not unfortunately, My hair's out of control, so I'm like messing with it, but whatever. What happened was I I finally got into the leadership program at ADP, and that was going to set me on a different path of life. And I got a phone call from a person at a startup who was referred to me by somebody that I loved at ADP that wanted to go work at Workday. Anyway, things unfolded. I go work at this startup. The startup uh, was perfect for me at that time. I wasn't in leadership. I had to come in and sell deals for them. But I told them in the interview, and they hired me anyway, so I guess they knew what they were getting. They interviewed me and they said, so what do you see yourself and what do you want? I said, I want to be a leader. And they're like, well, what if that doesn't happen? I said, well, I guess we'll face that. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. If you guys are going to grow like I think you're going to grow, like I don't think there's a problem here. So I came in, sold some really huge accounts, and then got to be promoted to a leader and build out a team. And I had really, really great mentorship and leadership there. Our senior leader was a guy from Oracle. He was somebody that I absolutely love and respect. He was somebody who at times I freaking hated, which is what I find oftentimes really great leaders do, is that they push you so hard that you get really uncomfortable and you might get a little angry, especially when you're a young leader and you're still learning what the hell is going on, which is what I was. So, I went through all of that and I built this really great career. I went there, I went to another place. And once I finished growing that company and I got to be promoted to second line leadership there, I took a national sales leadership role at a company that was just like, I wondered what the hell I was doing there. I followed a guy who I really thought highly of, and he was going to be my boss. And a month into that job, he quit the company, and I'm sitting there thinking, "Oh no, I am exposed. I have no protection. I have no shielding. Like this was my guy. This guy cared about me. This guy was going to help me be successful. This guy was going to do all the things that a leader who hires you does, like look out for you. Like he had a stake in my success. He left, and so I sat there and said, "Oh shit, what am I going to do?" And the company was in a real mess. It was an absolute shitstorm that I had walked into. Let's see. I'll try to keep the problems short. The product was awful. The product was so bad that, we had serious gaps in the product. And our biggest competitors were super well funded by private equity. Like they had big money to throw at product and big money to throw at marketing and all the things. We were this redheaded stepchild business unit inside this bigger company where what we did was just like an absolute mosquito bite on their earnings statement. Like nobody would talked about what this business unit did. So product was in a shambles. Team culture couldn't have been worse. The guy who had the job before me, I don't know who he was, and I wasn't there, so I'm not going to say anything about him other than the stuff I heard about him was just like shocking to me about like, jaw-dropping stuff of like, can't believe this guy did that kind of stuff, right? So I come in, I get that place cleaned up, get it back on track. It was a shitload of work. I'd never worked harder for less money in my life. And in a crummier culture, there were these cool leaders that I got to know, but the big leadership did not like sales. There wasn't a sales culture. And so one by one, all those great leaders that I came in to join a team with, that were my peers leading other business units, they all started leaving. And I was like, oh, anytime your peers start leaving, it's time to go. The culture had just been super toxic at the senior leadership level. So that was the job where the first time in my life, and this has created like a full, it's changed my empathy and how I look at PIPs. Because up to this point, I'd had to put people on PIPs before, and I always did it with a lot of empathy and care. In fact, I've had people that I've put on performance improvement plans, PIPs, who sincerely, they dug in, they turned it around, and they became the number one person on the team. I've had that happen before. But I also know that the attitude on most PIPs is not the attitude I have, which is I view a PIP as like, hey, we've coached and coached, and this is the like wake up and smell the coffee moment where we're either going to like pull it together and make it happen, or you're going to say, you know what, I'm not up to do that work and I need to go somewhere else and be happier and live my life somewhere else. But this company didn't look at PIPs that way for leadership. A PIP was, hey, we want to get rid of you. So what happened was the senior leaders started to grind down and do all of the micromanaging stuff that I've always hated about sales leadership, and I never wanted to be that kind of leader. So they wanted me to lead that way. And they had a meeting with me where they said, hey, we want you to start, really micromanaging and inspecting every single little thing. And they said to me, we don't think you have the stomach to do it. And I just smiled, right? And said, well, I don't think you need to worry about it. I'm going to deliver the number. So they hand me the PIP. I'm sitting there. In 25 years of sales, I have never been given a shitty review. I've never, I've gotten all kinds of feedback and coaching, right? Because I'm a human being and I have to learn and grow. But I've never had anybody tell me that I was like about to be fired or needed to, start looking for another job, which is basically what PIP is. So I got a real sense of what it feels like to be on the receiving end of that. And to be on the receiving end of a PIP without any coaching, to be on the receiving end of a PIP when it just hits you out of the blue. You're like, I'm hitting numbers. We're making forecasts. We will get to the end of the year number. Anyway, PIP comes. I'm sitting there freaked out. I won't lie. Like I was just like, you got to be shitting me. I've done all this work. I've never earned less money in my life than working for this crummy company. And they want to fire me. And I thought, I never wanted to be here anyway. I wanted to leave the minute that leader left. And I stuck around for another couple years just because I'm so freaking stubborn that way. And, I'm so committed to doing work. In reality, I should have quit that company sooner, but I didn't feel like I had a choice. I was the sole provider for my family. My husband at the time, he didn't work. He was a stay-at-home dad. There was no room to me not have a job. Yeah, we had savings, we had money in the bank, but I just didn't look at things that way. I was like, you don't quit a job until you have another job was always my philosophy and thinking. And, I think you got to figure out what's right for you and your family and what your risk tolerance is. But mine was pretty low at that time. So I stuck around and delivered the number. Meanwhile, I, of course, start getting to work right away, looking for another job. And what's funny about looking for another job, and I think a lot of us know this, is that I put a ton of energy into a search of which kind of company I wanted to work for. I had some very specific criteria, right? I did all this deep research on the leadership, specifically the CEO. Like I wanted to know what the CEO's mindset was and how they thought about sales. And then I wanted to know who the CRO was and were they any good? And I found all this info. I did all this research on this company. And then I just started doing straight up old school, this is what you do when you remember how your cold calling comes in handy. I just started messaging these sales leaders and I'd reach out and say, hey, I've been watching your company and I've been noticing how much it's growing. I think you guys are up to really good stuff there. I would appreciate the opportunity to, connect with you. And one of my strategies I've always used whenever I'm breaking into, a cold outreach of any sort is I go multi-thread. Right. So I went to multiple leaders and then once one leader connected with me, I would reach out to the other leaders and say, hey, I'm connected with so-and-so. It feels like you and I should be connected as well. And it worked. And before I knew it, I had a phone call and then I had a dinner and then a job opened up. at this company, and I got into a formal interview process. I'm interviewing with this company, and out of the blue, I get a phone call from a Salesforce recruiter. And it's always funny how when you put the energy, when you decide you're going to do something and you decide you're going to make a change and you start to get in action against it, you start putting energy, getting progress, all of a sudden stuff starts to just happen. It's happened every time for me in my career that way. Like once I start to go, things start going. And the secret's always in the going first. So I got a phone call from Salesforce, and I had a 15-minute intro call with the hiring sales leader. And in that 15-minute call, I was like, I want to work for this lady. She gets it. She gets it. She's smart. She's strategic. She's a human being. And those are a lot of the characteristics I look for in leaders, smart, strategic human being. And I really felt like I could trust this lady because she just told the truth. She was real. She was so authentic about everything. And so suddenly this other job search that I had and this other opportunity that I had started to, become something that was like, oh, wow, I might have 2 job offers right now. And wouldn't you know it, I did. I got 2 job offers. 2, I was making, I'll tell you right now, I can't believe I was working for so little money. I think I was making like $350 when I was working at the crummy place. And then when I got the job offer and $350 was really low, by the way. Like years before that, I'd had earnings that were more like $500,000. Anyway, I got to the job offer with both of these companies, and both of these companies were public companies. Salesforce is public, obviously. The other company was public, and they had stock. They had restricted stock that was attached to these offers. And when you combined the OTE and the stock, these offers were worth over $1 million each. And I'm sitting there thinking, holy shit, I have 2 amazing job offers. And so I did what I always do whenever I'm faced with a really tough decision. I apply this decision-making methodology that I learned from a book that my favorite sales leader at ADP gave out at her wedding, which was a book about, oh my gosh, what's her name? She's the wife of the GE CEO. Her name's escaping me right now, but the book is called 10-10-10, and I'll spare you reading the book because this is what the book tells you. When you're faced with a decision, the one way to really get clear about the decision that you're making is to, get a blank sheet of paper, notebook paper, whatever, and write down 10-10-10. And the 10-10-10 stands for this. It's, what are the implications, either or of the 2 options that you've got? What are the implications in 10 days? What are the implications in 10 months? And what are the implications in 10 years? And so that's a framework you can use when you're faced with tough choices, like big career choices or other big choices that you have in your life. And I did this job, and, they both were great opportunities, but the thing that was totally, made the Salesforce job be so much more attractive to me was this female leader. The leader that I was going to work for at this other company, nice enough guy, but I think we were not going to be a personality fit, truly. Like I probably could have stood working for him because I get along with anybody. One of my things I love to say is like, I specialize in tough personalities. I specialize in difficult people because it's kind of a game for me. And truly, people aren't that hard to figure out because truly they all just want to be seen. They all just want to be heard. They want to be cared about. And even difficult people want that. So if you can give them that, then the difficulty usually evaporates. Anyway, I made the decision and went with Salesforce. But that came to an end too. I had a great experience at Salesforce. It was an absolute, look, people have different experiences in different companies. I did some of the best leadership of my life there. I'd been a great leader, and boy, I'd certainly made a shitload of mistakes. So many I can help you avoid, truly help you avoid. But when I got to Salesforce, it was like finally I was in a place where I could lead the way I wanted to, and I had license to because I had a leader who let me do it that way. She trusted me, and she had faith in me, and she hired me because I told her how I led. I told her how I was fully focused on culture and how I built high trust teams and how I, connected the dots and solved complex problems with creative ideas. And I had stories to back all that stuff up, and she believed them, which is good because they were actually true. So, that came to an end though. Like I had a run there where I learned so much about myself and what I really was capable of and the kind of difference that I could really make for people. That was the best part of the job. And what I would show up for every day, look, you do something for long enough, hitting the number, that's table stakes. You stop getting filled up by that. Like, yay, I got a great commission check. I always am happy to get paid. Don't get me wrong. I like to enjoy the fruits of the labor of being in one of the highest paid roles in any company. But it doesn't fulfill me. What fulfills me and fulfilled me there and has fulfilled me all along is coaching high performing sales leaders and helping them grow, helping them get where they want to go. On my team, that was, leaders who wanted to move up. I was leading a mid-market team, and I had a leader that wanted to move up to enterprise. And he came, I built a culture where we really trusted each other. Like we really told each other the truth, and it was safe. And it felt so refreshing to be in a place where we could be honest with each other. And so when that leader came to me and he said, Aim, really want to go move and sell into enterprise. Like, I feel like it's the next thing for me. And, what do you think of it? And I said, well, I want to help you. What can I do to help you get there? Because the ego thing to do, and like the thing I would have wanted to do, 10 years before that would have been to be selfish and not let this person who was a high performer, who I totally trusted, who mentored all the new leaders on the team, who made my life easier, who was a joy to work with, delivered his number every time. It would have been easier for me to kind of be selfish and say, no, I don't want you to go. But that wasn't the right thing to do. And what kind of example would that leave for everybody else on the team who had aspirations? Because, when you got high performers working for you, guess what? Sometimes they do want to stick with you because they know they got a good thing and they don't want to mess it up because they love working with you. But you can be the most amazing leader in the world, but that doesn't change the fact that they have aspirations too. And the choice is always going to be, are you going to support them, or are you going to be that leader that doesn't? So I did this great work there, and man, I'm still really close to these people. I consider, we became a family of sorts, which everybody says work isn't family. I'm like, these people, I really do feel like they're family members to me. Like we spent so much time together and we still communicate all the time. Even though I don't work at Salesforce anymore. I was laid off from Salesforce in 2022. 10,000 people and I got an email on the first day of the fiscal year that said, thank you, but you no longer work here. And it was the first time in my life that I didn't have a job since I was 14 years old. I had to come to terms with the fact that I was not my job. I had to come to terms with the fact that I was not how much money I made. And I think that's a real moment in time where I don't know if you can actually get that lesson without being separated from your career. You might be able to get it like mentally. Like you're listening to me right now and you're like, yeah, Amy, I know I'm not my number, or I know I'm not how much money I make, but you know what? I bet a lot of your identity is tied up in the number, the how much money you make, what your title is, where you work. It's part of who you are. People in the United States, they don't say, hey, how are you? Like, tell me about your life or tell me anything. Like, you know what they care about first? What do you do for a living? Like, it's more important than anything else in your life, which we know is not true. It's just what you do for your living. It's just how you pay. It's how you pay for things. It's not who you are. And so that moment of identity of this isn't who I am. And I'm going to share with you right now that your job title isn't who you are. Your company that you work for isn't who you are. And the money you make is not who you are. And you already know that. But it helps to hear that because the more you can start to pull that in to yourself, it's actually freeing when you start to let go of like, that's not my identity. My identity is, and I'll tell you what my identity is. My identity is I am a person who wants to make a difference, a positive difference in the world. That's my identity. And my 3 values that I live my life under that fit all the other values fit with these 3. And in fact, it really could be just 2, but I like 3 because 3 is a magic number. And it's integrity, joy, and growth. And if I really had to boil it down to just 2, which Brene Brown said yesterday in her podcast that I'm supposed to just have 2, I was like, okay, if I just have it be 2, then I'm going to say integrity and growth, because integrity is the basis for everything. Integrity to do what I say, what I'm going to do, when I say I'm going to do it. I have the integrity to show up for myself. I have the integrity to show up for my family. I have the integrity to have boundaries when I need to have them. I have integrity to have tough conversations when I need to have them. I have integrity to quit things when I need to quit doing something that doesn't serve me, or quit working at a company that doesn't serve me, or quit being in a relationship that doesn't serve me. And I growth. I'm learning. I want to learn. I want to get better. I might get emotional. I want to improve. Not because I'm broken, not because I'm not good enough, because it is my pursuit of my life to grow. We are just big plants, after all, right? Every, month, quarter, year, season of our lives, we learn things, we make mistakes, and it is the mistakes. I mean, you think about deals that you lost, you think about bad hires that you had. Like, it is the mistakes that are where the juicy growth comes from. And it sucks. It hurts. It doesn't feel good. And that flippin' cliche, that goddamn, people paste it up on a freaking stupid billboard thing and they post it on LinkedIn, or like, growth, discomfort is where the growth begins. Oh God. Yeah, it is. And if you're actually uncomfortable, you are not glib about it. You are questioning everything about yourself. You're questioning who you are. You're questioning decisions that you've made. You're questioning what you're doing and why. Because it's in those questions. It's not the judgment. It's not judgment. It's in those questions where growth really happens. And so we're all a work in progress. Nobody's complete here. Not me, not you. And I won't be until I'm no longer here. And even then, I'm really hopeful that there could be something still after this, but that's a different conversation. So I'm not my job. Neither are you. Where was I going to go next? I think I'm going to go here because this is the part. This is like the crux of everything I do. This is why I chose leadership. This is like what I get out of it. I love empowering people. I love seeing their gifts and helping them find their way to their gifts as well. I love helping them see their blind spots and not judge them for it and not judge themselves for it and just be aware of it so they can know how to work through that. I love people. That's why I do this work. I care deeply. And this world needs great leaders. We have a real deficit of great leaders inside of companies, in our communities, and in our country. And if I can make a difference really helping people get access to their power as a leader, to their ability to become a bigger leader, to grow in their leadership, and to take that on, then, and then that leadership is centered in love and empathy and authenticity and high standards, freaking high standards, high integrity, then that's the kind of difference I want to make in the world. That's what I'm here for. And I didn't expect to get so worked up, but I guess, I've got to coach myself, right? And, whenever we're having heavy conversations, and that's a lot because she really pushes me, and I don't want to have those conversations most of the time. I'm just going to be honest. Like, I'm a coach and I don't like it. I don't like getting coached either, but I know I have to do it. It's like taking medicine. It's like going to the gym. It's like doing all the things you got to do to be a healthy person that's functioning and not falling apart. But it's when you get emotional that you care, that you've really touched on something that matters deeply to you in your heart. And that's where it is for me, because the heart never lies. The heart knows. You in your heart know what you want. You in your heart know the kind of leader you want to be. You in your heart know the kind of relationships that you want to have, the kind of health that you want to have, the kind of life and freedom that you want to have, the kind of peace that you want to have. You know that. You know that. And you've known it since you were a really young person, like a child, really. All I ever needed to learn, I learned it in kindergarten or something like that. There was that book way back when. So this is it. Buckle up. This is the first episode of season 3 of Women in Sales Leadership. I bring you my heart. I bring you my energy. I bring you my dedication. And if you are interested in working with me, I do have a program that I offer, and I have leaders that go through it. And the program is this: if you're a sales leader who wants to get promoted, most of the people that come to me, they are first-line sales leaders and they want to become second-line sales leaders. That's really what I focus on. And I do focus on leaders in B2B tech. That's where my expertise is. It's where I can really make the best impact. If you are open to doing that, if you want to learn more, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm at Aylin Evans on LinkedIn. You can find me there. Shoot me a message, a direct message. And you can also, I have a workshop that I am teaching in October, where it's a free 1-hour event. And the workshop is going to teach you the exact method that I used to get promoted and hired as a sales leader, a leader of leaders 4 times. the methodology I've used with other leaders that have led to them getting promoted. So everything from, how do you get your mindset straight about really thinking about yourself as an executive leader and all the imposter syndrome that everybody has, including you and me. How do we deal with that? More importantly, how do we get your career story down in a way that you tell it and the people who receive it, the executives who can hire you and champion you and sponsor you, they remember that story and they remember you. We work on that. And then also I teach you how to truly, truly build an executive sponsorship network. So you have multiple areas and layers of champions advocating for you. And the difference between people that do that and the people that don't, the people that do it, they get the promotions. Like I said before, these roles, there's not very many of them available. When they come open, there's a line out the door of leaders who think they're ready for it. And almost always, before the job is even posted, there's a short list. And I help people get on the short list. If you want to be a part of that, check out my website, amyevanscoaching.com. I'll put the link in the show notes below. We have some fantastic interviews coming up for the remainder of this season, and they will be dropping every week. So come back, make sure that you follow this show so you don't miss an episode. And if you want to be super generous, and I know you are a generous person, because, you wouldn't be here if you weren't, share this episode with somebody who you think needs to hear some of this message today. And if you want to rate the show wherever you're listening to it, I produce this show myself, and any rating, the followership, it helps me produce the show. I want to thank you so much for making time to be in this conversation with me today. And for those of you who have been listening with me and on this journey from the start, I particularly want to thank you so deeply, because your feedback that you all send me has really kept me going in this journey. And for those who are here for the very first time, welcome. And I'm so grateful. Go be the leader that you know you are. Thank you for tuning in to the Women in Sales Leadership podcast. If today's conversation sparked something in you, make sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. I know you're a generous person. Take a second to text a friend the link to this episode if you want to give them a little gift today. And if you're a sales leader who's ready to step into that next level role, but you're not sure how to get there, let's talk. You can find me on LinkedIn at Amy Evans, at a link at the bottom of this episode, and you can grab time on my calendar for a free leadership breakthrough call. I'd love to help you get clear, get promoted, and get paid what you're worth. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.